During the spring of the year 146 BC, after a week of relentless assault, Carthage was in smoldering ruins. Its people are in chains, being dragged away, kicking and screaming into Roman transports to be used as slaves. What was once the most powerful city in all of the Mediterranean, due to its impressive harbor and trade, has now fallen. Today, we will explore the cataclysmic Punic Wars and its major events that will lead to Carthage's destruction. Get ready for some Roman on Phoenician violence on this episode of Historical Quarrels. Hey y'all, welcome back to Historical Quarrels. Friendly reminder for all new listeners, this isn't your grandma's podcast, and viewer discretion is heavily advised, as many raunchy, off-color jokes will be used liberally throughout the show. Now, it's been a hot minute since our last episode, but fear not, we're back and ready to dive into some juicy historical conflicts. I apologize for the delay, but as you know, life happens, and I've just been super busy with work and family. You know, it happens, and deal with it. I do know at the end of the most recent episode, however long ago that was, I said I'd be covering the Hatfields and McCoys, and while I do still intend on covering that topic in a future episode, I'll be honest, I got really bored and started writing what amounted to a fan fiction version of events where it turned into a group orgy between the two families. And Devil Anne's Hatfield was a power bottom. And, you know, that just seemed historically inaccurate. And I felt like you guys deserved better than that. So, I mean, if anything, Asa would have been the bottom since he was the first to die. Anyways, back to the main topic, which is the Roman and Phoenician group wars. Seriously, though, we are going to be covering the three Punic Wars and the events that will lead to the fall of Carthage and the rise of the Roman Empire. So buckle up, strap yourselves in, and get ready for some hot Roman and Phoenician daddy-on-daddy violence. All right, fuck that new transition music is fire. So, introduction to the people in our story today. Carthage before the Punic Wars. Carthage was a powerful city-state located on the coast of modern-day Tunisia, North Africa. It was founded in the 9th century BC by Phoenician colonists and became a major center of trade and commerce in the Mediterranean world. Before the Punic Wars, which were fought between Carthage and Rome in the 3rd and 2nd centuries BC, Carthage had a strong economy, a formidable navy, and a highly organized government. But that government also sucked ass. I'll get into that here in just a second. Its influence extended over much of North Africa as well as parts of Spain, Sicily, and Sardinia. Carthage was a wealthy and cosmopolitan city with a diverse population that included Phoenicians, Berbers, Greeks, and others. The city was known for its skilled craftsmen, its fine textiles, and its production of wine and olive oil, very important for the orgies. Its military, although not as dominant as that of Rome, was still a force to be reckoned with and played a key role in protecting Carthaginian interests in the Mediterranean. Carthage's main weakness, that would be its downfall, would be its government and their overconfidence and greed. And when I say overconfidence and greed. These assholes had it in the bag so many goddamn times, and it's almost frustrating to look back at it from a hindsight point of view, because you're just like, come on, fucking supply your dudes, and you would have won. Anyways, let me get into Rome. Before the Punic Wars, Rome was a powerful city-state located on the banks of the Tiber River in central Italy. It was founded in the 8th century BC and had a history of expansion and conquest, gradually building up a large and influential territory in Italy. Rome's government was a republic, with elected officials who governed the city and its territories. The Roman economy was based on agriculture, trade, and industry, and the city became a hub of commerce and a center of culture in Italy. Rome's military was well organized and highly disciplined, with a system of citizen soldiers who were organized into legions and were called upon to serve when needed. Before the Punic Wars, Rome had already established itself as the dominant power in central Italy and had begun to expand its influence into the Mediterranean world, taking control of parts of Sicily and Sardinia, which is what's going to get us into our first conflict. The First Punic War. Well, let's get into what sparked this First Punic War. As I mentioned already, as long as Rome remained the little city of trade by the Tiber River, Carthage reigned supreme, and everything is fine. But the island of Sicily would be the flashpoint for growing Roman resentment of the Carthaginians. Sicily lay partly under Carthaginian and partly under Roman control. When Hero II of neighboring Syracuse fought against the Mamertines of Messina, the Mamertines asked first Carthage and then Rome for help. They did this as they felt uncomfortable under Carthaginian rule and thus pled to their hard Roman father daddies for help. The Carthaginians had already agreed to help and felt betrayed by the Mamertines' appeal to Rome. They changed sides, sending forces to Hero II, out of spite really, just to say fuck you to the Mamertines and the Romans, as they really didn't like either of them. The Romans fought for the Mamertines of Messina, and in 264 BCE, Rome and Carthage declared war on each other for the control of Sicily. So that's what sparked the First Punic War. Essentially, kind of like a lover's quarrel there, like a lover's spat, being like, oh, but you went to him for help instead of me. Oh, so sad. Although Rome had no navy and knew nothing of sea battles, they swiftly built and equipped 330 ships because they could just fucking do that, since their entire population was all about going to war. I swear to God, Romans loved fighting almost as much as the Vikings did. As they were far more used to fighting land battles, they devised the clever device of the corvus, a movable gangplank which could be attached to an enemy ship and held in place with hooks. By stopping the other ship and attaching it to their own, the Romans could manipulate a sea engagement through the strategies of a land battle. I'd like to think about this as that one kid who says they're good at everything, but in all reality, they're just super good at sports, and then you bring them to a puzzle room, and they find a stick, and just use it to break everything and brute force their way through the entire puzzle. Which then makes them feel smart, because they used the only option they really understood. Rome essentially created new land masses when fighting, which allowed them to have a land battle on sea. They were that dumbass. That dumbass kid who's just like breaking shit in a puzzle room. So, go them. It's still pretty smart, but fucking goddamn. Even so, they lacked the expertise at sea of the Carthaginians, and more importantly, were lacking a general with the skill of the Carthaginian Hamilcar Barca. Hamilcar was surnamed Barca, meaning lightning, because of his speed in attacking anywhere and the suddenness of the action. He struck without warning up and down the coast of Italy, destroying Roman outposts and cutting supply lines. This guy was the shit. This guy was the main guy that the Carthaginians relied on and thought they could just be like, hey, fight all of Rome, fuck them up for us, and we good. And that Carthage just thought I didn't have to do jack shit else. Had the Carthaginian government better supplied and reinforced Hamilcar, they most probably would have won the war. But instead, they contented themselves with hoarding their wealth and trusted to Hamilcar and his mercenaries to take care of their enemies without the necessary support. Which is so fucking stupid. It's like, hey, mercenary group, here, I'm going to pay you this amount and go fuck up Rome, okay? You guys got this. You don't need jack shit from us, even though Rome, is a pretty big military. And honestly, we kind of know that they're pretty big. Boy, fuck them. You guys are good. They can't do shit at sea. Which is insane. Come on. He defeated the Romans at Drepana in 249 BCE, but then was forced to withdraw due to a lack of manpower and supplies. According to the historian Will Durant, worn out almost equally, the two nations rested for 9 years. It was essentially both daddies getting that post-nut clarity, realizing they weren't going anywhere with fighting, and both of them needed a breather. But while in those years, Carthage did nothing, because of course they didn't do shit. I mean, they must have been into that kink play where you want to be dominated, but like you want to be a brat about it and fight back until you just get pounded into submission or something. So a number of Roman citizens voluntarily presented to the state a fleet of 200 men of war carrying 60,000 fucking troops because Romans loved this shit, man. They lived for it and were fucking chomping at the heels for another big Roman W. God damn, they loved it. The Romans, more experienced in sea battles now and better equipped and led, won a series of decisive victories over Carthage in 241 BCE, and the Carthaginians sued for peace because they couldn't fucking do anything else at that point. This war was costly to both sides, but Carthage suffered more seriously owing to the corruption and incompetence of her government, which embezzled funds which should have gone to the military and consistently refused to send much-needed supplies and reinforcements to generals in the field. The mostly mercenary army, who often simply refused to fight because they weren't getting fucking paid. Goddamn dumbasses didn't pay their goddamn defenders. How do you do that? How do you think that is smart? Oh my god. Sorry. Carthage deserved to get destroyed. Honestly, by the end of this, I hope you guys all realize that too. Carthage fucking deserved it. Because honestly, that's what they wanted by their actions, by the government's actions. That's what it seemed like they wanted. They also had an over-reliance on the brilliance of Hamilcar Barca. While great, he was one fucking man. Further, however, they seriously underestimated their enemy. While Carthage would largely ignore the war, leaving the fighting to Hamilcar and his mercenaries, Rome would be building and equipping more ships and training more men. Because they knew they were going to fuck up Carthage. So they we need a bigger army for this. You should get ready for a full war, huh? I mean, that's just what normal people would do, but Carthage's like, I'll just stick my thumb up my own ass and go fuck off. Like, come on! Anyways. Even though Rome never had a navy before the First Punic War, they emerged in 241 BCE as masters of the sea, and Carthage was the defeated city. Which is so insane. They didn't have a fucking navy, and they come out and beat the main city, country with honestly, at the time, the world's best navy and seaport. And they won the first war, which was mainly a sea battle. Holy shit. Rome adapts so goddamn easily to this. It's scary. It's really scary. After they lost their few matches to Hamilcar, who understood sea battles and was a genius, they're like, well, fuck, we need to step our shit up, and they stepped up. And Carthage, meanwhile, again, was just like, mercenaries will take care of it. I guess we're fine here. I'm gonna go fuck some more whores and shit. Yeah. Fucking dumbasses. Anyways, here's some facts on why Carthage's government sucks so much ass. The government of Carthage was based on a system of elected officials accountable to a popular assembly. Unlike its founding city, Tyre, in Phoenicia, Carthage did not have a monarchy, but its politics was dominated by an aristocratic elite, which was composed of competing clans which held all important political, judicial, and military positions. As in other contemporary ancient cultures, participation in political life and the popular assembly of the city was limited to those who held citizenship, indigenous and free males. Although this system was praised by such noted figures as Aristotle, some of the exact workings of the Carthaginian government have remained elusive, a situation further confused by Greek and Roman writers using their own familiar terminology to describe the political institutions of Carthage, such as the suffets. The most powerful office in the Carthaginian government was held jointly by two magistrates, elected annually, known as suffets, Latinized from the Punic spitim or suffitim, and conventionally translated as judges. These had replaced the initial system of monarchies sometime in the early 7th century BCE, and so their association with purely judicial matters may too have widened in political scope as the office evolved. It is also possible that there was only one suffet in the first century or so of the new system, as moving from a monarchy to what is essentially a pseudo-republic, it must have been difficult, so they still kind of wanted to have like one leader for a little bit, is what it seemed like. And then they moved into two, which is how the Spartans actually kind of governed. They had two kings. So pretty interesting. Anyways, Greek and Roman sources indicate the suffets operated in collaboration with the Senate and were also concerned with civil lawsuits. Wealth and family background seem to have been the two most important factors in being considered eligible for the role. The position of suffet continued to exist even when North Africa became a Roman province and is recorded at least until the 2nd century CE. So their government, the way of government did last after Carthage got its ass blasted. The Senate. Carthage, even under its earliest form of monarchy, had a Senate composed of influential citizens. These members were known as drim, or great ones, and held the position for life. Just how these senatorial members were selected is unknown, but it's likely they numbered between 200 and 300, and they probably had to pay for the seat, in all honesty. It seems like it's just mostly bribes. They met in a building in the marketplace of Carthage, but also sometimes at the temple of Eshmun on the Brisa Hill, or Birsa Hill. The suffets would consult the Senate on government policy, military, diplomatic, and financial matters. And if the two sides disagreed, then a deciding vote would be held in the popular citizens' assembly. Also, if one suffet was not in agreement, then again the assembly would be consulted. So that's probably another reason why Carthage couldn't get shit fucking done during the First War, because they were held up with politics, which kind of reminds me of America's government and how we can't get a lot of shit done because two sides disagree on one point and don't just fucking do something, which is good and bad. There's good to it because, it stops us from making hasty decisions and like fucking shit up. But it's bad because let's say, shit happened and we really need to like get shit done, or, we're destroying the world and we really need to start some like reforms for pollution and stopping carbon emissions, which we are doing now, which is cool. Hopefully Biden's emissions plan actually does go a little more into effect. I don't know the full details of it, so if there are issues with it that I don't know, like he's stealing money from cancer patients or something, fuck it. I didn't read that much into it. I was just happy that we're doing something about pollution for once, which is cool. And I hope, future representatives of the United States do that, and we keep passing laws that help, further stopping the advancement of our destruction by our own hands. That'd be great if we could stop that. We know that the Senate decided on declarations of war, whether or not to send additional armies to support generals in the field, punishments for commanders who failed in their objectives, and whether to accept peace terms offered by the enemy. The Senate also sent representatives with Hannibal's army in Spain and Italy and signed the commander's peace treaty with Macedon in 215 BCE. However, it is also true that commanders often acted quite independently when campaigning across the Mediterranean, which led the Athenian politician Isocrates to state that Carthage was ruled by an oligarchy at home and by a king in the field, which makes a lot of fucking sense, but also not, because it's fucking stupid to do that. Another important group of officials was those administrators selected to govern the provinces controlled by Carthage. Allied cities such as Utica and Cadiz and subject territories in North Africa were allowed a high degree of political autonomy except in military matters and foreign affairs. In return for Carthage's protection, they did have to pay tribute, money, arms, and men for military service. Regional officials would have supervised this and collected such additional taxes as custom duties, and probably kept it in their pockets and never sent it to mercenaries who were defending them because they're stupid. All of the key political positions in the Carthaginian government were dominated by a ruling elite. The aristocracy was characterized and dominated by opposing families, notably the Barcides, which is where Hamilcar Barca and Hannibal come from, and the Magonids. Nevertheless, for enterprising citizens, especially rich merchants, there was the possibility to join this aristocracy, as wealth was the overriding factor for success in politics, which is still true today. The more money you have, the more likely you are to get elected to a position. Oh man, we have not changed in over a couple thousand years, have we? Go humans. Love it. On the other hand, the traditional elite was composed of those who could claim descent to the colony's founding fathers, and it is clear that genealogy was an important consideration. This perhaps explains the rather confusing repetition of names from generation to generation, resulting in literally hundreds of Hannos, Hamilcars, and Hannibals. So yeah, that's why Carthage's government sucked ass, and why they couldn't get jack shit done during the First War, where they could have fucking won and stopped Rome. They probably would have stopped the Roman Empire from becoming as big had they done that. Which, good for us, because I love Roman culture to an extent, and I think the Roman history is pretty cool. So Carthage ended up concentrated on the conquest of Spain rather than trying to drive the Romans out of their former colonies. During the war, the Carthaginian government had repeatedly failed to pay its mercenary army, and so in 241 BCE, these mercenaries laid siege to the city because they didn't pay them. It's like, what the fuck did you think was going to happen? They were going to just sit there and take it after they fought and died for you. Like, they had friends that died for them, and then they were like, yeah, fuck you, no money. Like, come on. They were the bulk fighting force. So stupid. It's so goddamn stupid, but I love it. They're like dumb little cum sluts just begging to be dominated. Hamilcar Barca was called upon to raise the siege and did so, even though Carthage had refused him the much-needed supplies and reinforcements on his campaigns. On her behalf, he had led most of these mercenaries in battle himself. The mercenary war lasted from 241 to 237 BCE, and while Carthage was engaged in this conflict, Rome occupied the Carthaginian colonies of Sardinia and Corsica. While Carthage was unhappy with this development, there was little they could do about it, because they fucked around and found out. They concentrated their efforts on the conquest of Spain rather than trying to drive the Romans out of their former colonies, which is going to fuck them over in the next war. In 226 BCE, the Ebro Treaty was signed between Carthage and Rome, agreeing that the Romans would hold Spanish territory north of the Ebro River, Carthage would hold the area they had already conquered south of the river, and neither nation would cross the boundary until it was time to cross it and start the Punic War Part 2 Electric Boogaloo. So, the Second Punic War begins. In 228 BCE, Hamilcar was killed in battle and/or decided to jump into the ocean and drown himself because he couldn't stand how fucking stupid the government was in his home country. So command of the Carthaginian army went to his son-in-law, Hasdrubal the Fair, a.k.a. Hasdrubal the Sexy, a.k.a. Hasdrubal the Rock Hard Handsome Man with the biggest dick anyone has ever seen. Hasdrubal chose diplomatic rather than military solutions to conflict with Rome, as he was very desired, being the most covered in olive oil and therefore could be used as a source for lube, but was assassinated by a servant of a Celtic king in 221 BCE, probably because he was just too sexy. And the servant's crush was wanting some of that ass or something. Definitely not revenge, since Hasdrubal had killed his master or something like that. That definitely didn't happen. Thus, command went to Hannibal Barca, Hamilcar's oldest son. To the south of the border of Ebro lay the city of Saguntum, a Roman ally, and in 218 BCE, Hannibal laid siege to the city and took it all, while having the smuggest of looks on his face and mooning the Romans on top of his elephant. It was said, all of Rome beheld the glory of his ass, and were incensed to violence. The Romans objected to this attack and demanded that Carthage deliver Hannibal and his glorious ass to Rome. The Carthaginian Senate refused to comply, stating, "Nah, dog, that ass is 100% grade A Carthaginian cake." And so began the Second Punic War. Hannibal was caught in southern Italy in a cow and mass game with the Roman army. Hannibal, a sworn enemy of Rome, received intelligence that Roman armies were moving against him, and, in a bold gamble, marched his forces over the Alps and into northern Italy. Hannibal then proceeded to play 4D chess with Rome and kick their asses so goddamn hard that Rome would proceed to never shut up about how cool Hannibal was, and thus immortalizing the man and his many elephants. Hannibal would win each engagement he fought in and conquered the majority of northern Italy. Having lost many of his elephants on his march over the mountains and lacking necessary siege engines and troops, Hannibal was caught in southern Italy in a cat-and-mouse game with the Roman army under Quintus Fabius Maximus. Fabius refused to engage Hannibal directly, relying instead on cutting off his supplies and starving his army, because Fabius fucking knew how likely he was going to get his ass beaten in a direct conflict and decided to play the smart game, knowing that Carthage sucks, and wait until Hannibal had no men, no elephants, or both. Fabius' strategy might have worked had not the Romans become impatient with their legion's inactivity. Again, Romans really only cared about proving they were the biggest and baddest motherfuckers of all the land at the time, so the fact that Fabius wasn't doing that pissed them off to no end. Further, Hannibal used counterintelligence to reinforce and spread the rumor that Fabius refused to fight because he was in the pay of the Carthaginians. Fucking 4D chess move number 300 from Hannibal. Fabius was replaced by Caius Terentius Varro and Lucius Aemilius Paulus, who threw off caution to the wind and led their troops against Hannibal in the region of Apulia. At the Battle of Cannae in 216 BCE, Hannibal placed his Gauls in the center of his lines, expecting they would give way before the Roman forces. When they did exactly that, and the Romans pressed what they saw as an advantage and followed them, Hannibal closed from behind and the sides, enveloping the Roman forces and crushing them. 44,000 Roman soldiers died at Cannae, compared with 6,000 of Hannibal's forces. This single battle is regarded as one of history's most important battles to understand, and really cemented the genius that was Hannibal. This man showed how a perfect victory could be achieved despite having far less men, by carefully positioning them, and it taught future commanders invaluable lessons like the pincer movement, flanking, controlled retreating, and so on. Hannibal won his greatest victory, but could not build upon it, as Carthage refused to send him the reinforcements and supplies he needed, goddammit. Which, I'm going to be honest here, guys. Put yourself in Hannibal's shoes. You have been kicking ass. You have conquered the majority of the territory of an enemy who beat your own country in the previous war it fought. You have demonstrated not only that you can lead an army, but that you can use that army to its fullest, and that country that so desperately needs a W still says that you aren't reliable and or still doesn't supply you with jack shit. Do you know how pissed off he must have been? Do you feel the frustration that he might have felt? I know I do. And my God, I would have beaten the shit out of everyone in my home country if I came back with my army and was like, you fuckers, really? Come on. Y'all want to get your ass kicked? I'll do it. Come on. Carthage deserves to get destroyed. Like, at the end of this, don't even feel bad about everyone that gets dragged off and used as slaves. Their government fucking handed them over on a silver platter. Yeah. Shortly after this, the Roman general Publius Cornelius Scipio, later known as Scipio Africanus, was defeating the Carthaginian forces in Spain under Hannibal's brother Hasdrubal Barca. Hasdrubal had ably defended Spain from the Romans until the arrival of Scipio, who defeated him completely in 208 BCE. Hasdrubal fled Spain, following his brother over the Alps into Italy to join forces. He was stopped and defeated at the Battle of Metaurus in 207 BCE, dying on the field. Hannibal knew nothing of his brother's whereabouts until Hasdrubal's severed head was thrown into his camp. Fucking insane, man. That'd be the worst way to get news of a family member's death, just their head being tossed over to you. God damn, Rome. Rome was brutal. Recognizing that Hannibal's army would be recalled if Carthage were attacked, and with Spain now under Roman control, Scipio manned a fleet and sailed to North Africa, where he took the Carthaginian city of Utica. Carthage recalled Hannibal from Italy to save their city, but Scipio was a great admirer of Hannibal and had studied his tactics carefully. At the Battle of Zama in 202, Hannibal sent an elephant charge against the Romans, which Scipio, mindful of Hannibal's strategies, deflected easily. The Romans killed the Carthaginians on the elephants and sent the animals back into Carthaginian ranks, then followed with a combined cavalry charge and infantry advance, which caught the enemy between and crushed them. Because again, if you give Rome enough time, they will almost always adapt and overcome any goddamn foe sent their way. Hannibal returned to the city and told the Senate that Carthage should immediately surrender, and he probably beat the shit out of anyone that denied sending him troops and supplies. At least I hope he did. Scipio allowed Carthage to retain her colonies in Africa, but she had to surrender her navy and was not allowed to make war under any circumstances without Rome's approval. Carthage was also to pay Rome a war debt of 200 talents every year for 50 years. Carthage was, again, a defeated city, but retaining its trading ships and 10 warships to protect them, was able to struggle on and begin to prosper. The Carthaginian government, however, was still as corrupt and selfish as it had always been. They taxed the shit out of the people heavily to help pay the war debt, while they themselves contributed nothing. Because rules for thee, not for me, I'm rich, use a bitch. Hannibal came out of retirement to try and rectify the situation, but was betrayed by the rich Carthaginians to the Romans, because they're like, oh shit, we can't make an enemy out of this guy, so let's just fucking kill him. And fled. He died by his own hand, drinking poison in 184 BCE, aged 67. I really think at that point, Hannibal should have just been like, yo, Rome, I'll help you fuck up these pieces of shit completely and be one of your greatest generals instead of fleeing. But, pride and all that. Also, I want to go ahead and just let you know that Hannibal's plan had majorly just one flaw. Hannibal had planned the invasion of Italy and a strategy for beating Rome for many years before the war even broke out. Rome had won the First Punic War by simply outlasting the Carthaginians in men and resources. The Romans had a potential manpower pool of around 700,000 men and were determined to win total victory no matter the cost. Hannibal knew that invading Italy was his best chance. The 700,000 number is accounting for the vast number of Italian allies of Rome. Hannibal hoped that by winning the great victories in the heart of Italy, he could bring some of that 700,000 away from Rome and have them ally with Carthage. Ideally, the beating he would give to the Romans on their home turf and the desertion of the allies should force Rome to surrender. Pretty smart, right? You'd think that this plan would go decently well. However, the Carthaginians would fuck him over. This strategy is still better than anything the Carthaginian government would come up with. Hannibal just didn't account for the sheer willpower of the Romans and the fearful respect of their allies. At the height of his success, Hannibal had just won Cannae, killing over 100,000 men over the course of his Italian campaign. Almost all of southern Italy, including the very powerful city of Capua, deserted Rome and sided with Hannibal. Though there was panic, the strategic aim of the Romans remained unchanged. They focused on winning back their allies, ruthlessly sacking treasonous cities and massacring populations, creating such a fear that many cities who deserted Rome came back to their Roman allies, losing 15% of the total possible manpower, which in today's time would equate to tens of millions of dead for a modern populated country like USA today. Yet the Romans continued. Hannibal was an amazing general, and he did everything in his power, following his solid strategic plans, but just couldn't get done on his own. And Rome was the most brutal and savage motherfuckers of all time. They massacred cities to set examples to their other allies, being like, if you leave us, everyone is going to fucking die before we die. I promise you that. And that scared everyone enough, because they knew they'd fucking do it, that they switched back to Roman size and abandoned Hannibal. And that's, in the end, that's what ended up losing Hannibal this second war. He was a genius, and he should have won, and he could have won if Carthage had supported him more fully. And Carthage decided to have their thumbs stuck up their own asses. Thus ends the tale of Hannibal. Now we get into the Third Punic War. Carthage continued paying the war debt to Rome for the agreed upon 50 years, and when it was done, and all of their people were considerably fucked over, considered their treaty with Rome completed also. They went to war against Numidia, were defeated, and had to then pay that nation another war debt. As they had gone to war without Rome's approval, the Roman Senate considered Carthage a threat to the peace again. The Roman senator Cato the Elder took the threat so seriously that he would end all of his speeches, no matter the subject, with the phrase, "And further, I think that Carthage should be destroyed." Literally every single one of this guy's speeches ended in, let's go fuck up Carthage. So in 149 BCE, Rome sent an embassy to Carthage suggesting exactly that course. Rome just straight up was like, yo, we're going to invade you. We're going to destroy you. You fucked around. Now it's time to find out. And they were nice about it to at least like tell them that they were going to do that. That the city should be dismantled and moved inland away from the course. The Carthaginians refused to comply with this, and so began the Third Punic War. The Roman general Scipio Aemilianus besieged the city for 3 years, and when it fell, sacked it and burned it to the ground. Rome emerged as the preeminent power in the Mediterranean, and Carthage lay in ruin for over 100 years, until it was finally rebuilt following the death of Julius Caesar. The Punic Wars provided Rome with the training, the navy, and the wealth to expand from a small city to an empire which would rule the known world. So we have Carthage to thank for all the cool Roman shit we have today, also for all the Roman destruction of knowledge and cultures that might have been known had Rome not become an empire. Is that a plus? Is it a negative? Who knows? That's not for us to decide. It's for us to understand and to hopefully not repeat. So that is the story of the Punic Wars. Carthage ended up having like 50,000 something of its citizens taken as slaves, and its system of government was still used, especially as Rome expanded into an empire. That is the takeaway from the Punic Wars. Let's go ahead and pop out of this and get into key thoughts and finish up this episode. All right, guys, that brings us to the end of today's episode. That was Rome versus Carthage and the Punic Wars. I hope you guys had a great time listening to that, getting to know a little more about these major wars that helped develop Rome into the empire that it was. Honestly, my key takeaways, number one, Carthage's government sucked all the ass. I cannot imagine how corrupt and greedy you must have been to think you'd get away with not defending your own country and fucking over your people. And honestly, most of the aristocracy there died and or bribed the Romans enough, but they still ended up living destitute and not having their wealth anyways. So it profited them nothing. They could have kept being greedy and kept more money in their wealth had they decided to actually fund shit that would protect them. So it's just they were stupid. Key point 2, Carthage deserved to get fucking destroyed. And I kind of understand why at the end fucking Cato would end each of his speeches being like, so guys, I think we need to go fuck up Carthage. Like, they had fucked around for, it was like almost 100 years at that point. And yeah, it just needed to happen. It needed to happen by then. Rome could do it. They knew they could do it. It was just kind of waiting for the excuse to go do it. So, other takeaway would have to be Hannibal was a genius and got fucked over so hard. Fourth one, I'd say definitely Hasdrubal being the sexiest motherfucker alive, apparently. Because like everything I read about him was like, yeah, this guy was super handsome. Everyone considered him super handsome. So I was just like, yeah, so everyone just wanted to suck his dick, obviously. Like, come on. My final takeaway would be Rome adapted and overcame every single goddamn obstacle in its way. And that is inspiring to me. I think that's something we should all take away and all understand is we can all adapt and overcome even when Hannibal is pounding our asses or Hannibal is at our gates. Which, by the way, is a famous phrase that is like now immortalized as well. Hannibal was that scary that the phrase used for when an enemy was invading Rome is Hannibal is at the gates. That's all for today. Thank you guys for listening. Please, again, send in suggestions. Let me know how I can do better. This is primarily for fun. I did have a lot of fun reading all of this and writing all of this. I know I didn't come up with as many like fake stories or gotchas. I wanted to record this episode and get it out because I haven't done that in a while. So I love you guys. Thank you for listening. I seriously appreciate it. I hope you guys had fun. I know I did. Peace out. Bye.